everyone, my name is Akanksha Mishra and I am a dance movement therapist at My Whole Child. We're just going to wait a while for everyone to join in, and then today's session is about dance movement therapy. We're going to talk about dance movement therapy and what is it, what is the difference between dance therapy and therapeutic dancing and a dance class. And I'm going to answer as many questions as I can about dance movement therapy. So let's just wait for a few people to join in. If you can hear me properly and you can see me, please send me a thumbs up so that I know that there is clarity in the video and the audio quality. Alright, I see a few people joining. We're just gonna give it a few minutes so that as many people as possible can join. Alright, I see a few more. Well, while other people are joining in, let's just chat. While this is a difficult time for all of us at home, because we have to work from home, work at home, take care of our kids at home. So during these difficult times, we thought we could arrange these live sessions as breaks for all of you parents out there to learn a little bit more for students and professionals about what dance movement therapy is, and just a little bit of an introduction and an interactive session on dance movement therapy during these difficult times. And maybe you can pick up a little bit on what from dance movement therapy you can use to relax yourself, calm yourself during these times of stress. Alright, I see a few people have joined in, so I'm just going to reintroduce myself for the ones who have just joined in. Once again, my name is Akanksha Mishra. I am a dance movement therapist at My Whole Child. I'm going to take you through the flow of the session today. So the first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about what dance movement therapy is. We're going to move on to the difference between a dance movement therapy session and a dance class. Then we're going to move on to specifically how dance movement therapy is being used with kids. And I'm going to try to answer as many of your questions as I can. And if I don't get to those right now, I will definitely get back to you via message. And I will try to answer all of the questions that come in today. Okay, so since a few people have joined in, let's not even start with talking. Let's just start today by paying attention to how you're watching this video. Okay, are you sitting down on your chair in an upright position and watching this video? Are you probably lying down on your bed and watching this video? Are you kind of dusting and doing other household chores and watching this video? Are you out for a walk and you have your headphones on and you're listening to me and listening to this talk? Or are you kind of slumped in your couch, just kind of trying to take it all in from a distance? Just notice your posture while you're listening to me. There's no need to change it, there's no need to alter it. Just notice it. Yes. And go ahead and now notice when you have to prepare for an exam. Tomorrow is an exam and you have to go ahead and learn a lot of things and cram up a lot of information in one go. What is the posture you choose to adopt then? So do you sit on a table upright? Are you one of those who likes to walk around and kind of gain the information, take in the information? Or are you one of those who wants to sit on the floor with a lot of papers and books all around you and kind of take in all the information from wherever you need? Right? Just think about it. And now think about watching your favorite documentary or a TED Talk that you'd been waiting to watch, where they're still learning, but you really don't have to learn information and then the next day is an exam. So how do you take in that information? Do you kind of lay back in your bed, watch the video and let the information come to you? Are you on your couch? Are you standing, sitting? What is the posture that you adopt then? The interesting thing is that all of us have a unique posture that we adopt to kind of take in different kinds of information. Just your posture, just the way you hold your body impacts the way your mind processes information, right? And the unique thing about this is that each of us have different preferences of these postures. Each of us have a unique movement style to take in information. So this is a very, very small example on how your body posture impacts your mind and the way you process information. Now let us look at it the other way around. Imagine you're in a conference, all right? You're, say, 15 of us sitting across from each other in a circle, and there's a table in the middle with the last cookie left. And you're very hungry, okay? The conference has been going on for long and you're very, very hungry. So how would you approach that cookie? There would be some people who would be like, should I go? Should I not go? What should I do? This doesn't seem right to take the last cookie, but they will go and quietly grab it and have it. Some people may say, oh, I'm hungry, I'm gonna grab the last piece and eat it. Some people may think in their minds that, oh, maybe, I should offer it to everybody. So each of our movements, even though we may not be communicating this verbally, each of these movements will impact the way our body moves. Each of these thoughts will impact the way our body moves at that time. So not only does our body impact the way we think, what we feel inside also gets reflected through the body in a non-verbal gestural way. Movement reflects on personality. So movement reflects personality, and the body-mind integration are two very, very important principles to dance movement therapy. Dance movement therapy as a field uses the expressive quality of dance and movement to further expression through social, emotional, cognitive, and physical integration. A dance movement therapist is trained both in dance therapy theories as well as either psychotherapy or counseling and psychological theories, in a way that they're able to use movement as the core essence of their work in terms of relating to people, understanding, connecting with them, as well as an intervention. A lot of people have asked me, where is dance movement therapy used? Is it only for kids? Is it for adults? Where is it used? So dance movement therapy is used with children, adolescents, adults, older adults, everyone in hospitals, schools. It is used in daycare centers, it's used for special needs, it's used in a variety of settings, and it is done both in individual and small group formats. What we are going to be focusing on today a little bit is on children and adolescents with special needs, and specifically why I think, or why research thinks, dance movement therapy works for them. All right, before we get into any of that mumbo jumbo, let's see what is the dance in dance movement therapy. Now, this from personal experience, a lot of people call me for dance movement therapy and they say, but oh, will I be able to do this because I'm not really a dancer, right? And this is my response to them, and I'm going to ask each of you the same question. Are you breathing? Is your heart beating? Is the blood flowing through your body? And I sincerely hope the answer is yes. And if you've answered yes, then you are dancing, right? There is a rhythm in each of us. Dance movement therapy looks at movement from a very, there is a whole spectrum of movement that we look at, ranging from micro to macro movement. Now, what is micro movement? Your breath, your posture, the way you're sitting. The way I'm talking to you right now using my hands, I do that a lot. That is also dance in dance movement therapy. And now, what is a macro movement? A macro movement are movements that are big and you can very obviously see them, like running and jumping and dancing to music. So those are movements you can see they're clear and big, but there are also those movements which are tiny and subtle, like rubbing of the hands, avoiding eye contact. All of this, all movement, according to dance movement therapists, has meaning. All movement, no matter how small it is or how big it is, every little movement has meaning. All right, moving on to something that's been asked a lot. What is the difference between dance movement therapy and dance class? Let me clarify that dancing, going to a dance class, can be very, very therapeutic and healing. And I am a dancer, and probably because of the benefits that I felt because of dancing, I chose this field at all. So dancing made me more confident, it made me more social. Yes, dancing has inherent healing capacity. But dance movement therapy is a little bit different from a dance class. So to understand the very basic difference, what is the goal of a dance class? What is the goal of, say, you go to a salsa class? What is the goal of going to that salsa class? To learn salsa, right? So there is an instructor who teaches you specific steps so that you're able to learn that dance form. In dance movement therapy, you're not learning any specific dance form. You are not given prescribed steps. We don't teach something except if you want to teach it in a warm-up or the beginning of the session, just to kind of get people in their bodies. You don't learn a specific dance form, and the movement is more led by the client or the person who's attending the dance movement therapy session. So the idea is for the therapist and the client to form a dialogue of movement, that I offer something, you offer something, and we make something together. So the focus is more on expressive movement than on prescribed or structured types of movement. The other thing is, what is the difference in someone who takes a dance class and someone who takes a dance therapy session? A lot of people have asked me what are dance therapists trained in. So someone who's taking a dance class is trained in a specific form of dance, probably has done years of training and degrees in that dance form. A dance movement therapist, most dance movement therapists, almost all dance movement therapists are also dancers, but they have, more specifically, they have a degree in dance movement therapy, like I said before, which combines a lot of psychology, movement analysis, and dance therapy theories. All right, another difference. A lot of people again have asked me this. What is the group size? How big can a group be in a dance movement therapy session? Well, that varies. In a dance class, you can have hundreds together, 40, 50, 100, how many ever you want. Whereas in a dance movement therapy session, personally, I specifically with children and adolescents, I don't take over 5 or 6 kids, right? And that too, I take them on the basis of what their goals are. So kids who may benefit in their goals from each other are ones who take the session together. All right. So I hope that this kind of clarifies a little bit about how dance movement therapy is different from a dance class. There are a lot more differences that we cannot kind of cover in this live talk, but I hope you were able to get the gist of it and kind of understand the basic differences. Let's move on now to the topic of why and how is dance movement therapy used with kids and adolescents. So today, dance movement therapy is getting a lot of popularity with children and adolescents coping with autism spectrum disorder, CP, ADHD, Down syndrome, and even emotional and behavioral concerns. Before we dive into how it's beneficial for kids, I think it's important to recognize why movement works at all. Why do we turn to movement rather than any other medium? So, movement is universal language. What does universal language mean? So, when a child is born, does the child know anywhere across the world? Does the child know how to speak? No. How do children communicate with us? Through the non-verbal, through their movement. When a child curls up, you know that he or she is probably not liking what you're offering. When they show that excited gasp, you know that they're happy about seeing something that they are. By the way, in this point, I want to acknowledge that all parents are excellent non-verbal movement readers. Excellent readers. You do it all the time. I've had parents come to me and say, oh, I can recognize different types of cries that my baby has. So when they're crying when they want to be changed, they cry differently. When they're hungry, they cry differently. So that is amazing. And that is all non-verbal communication. And all of us use non-verbal communications, not just babies. Just because we get words does not mean that our non-verbal or our movement life disappears. There are lots of studies that say about 80 to 85% of our communication is through the non-verbal. So through whether or not we make eye contact, how we use our body to shift and move it in terms of orientation and all of that. So we communicate a lot through our bodies, even though we might not notice it all the time. Coming back to children and why using movement. A lot of the kids who are on the autism spectrum have ADHD and other problems and concerns that they are coping with. A lot of them are either non-verbal or they have very limited language, or they do have language but their language is not expressive. They're not able to communicate their wants and needs through words. DMT is an excellent form of therapy for all of those kids because we directly connect with the child on a movement level. We directly connect through the movement, which sends the signal to the child of being seen, of being heard, and of being validated. So I'll give you an example. If a dance movement therapist is working, for example, with a child who is engaging in hand flapping. So in our approach, rather than going and stopping the hand flapping, first of all, let me take you back to the reference of, in dance movement therapy language, we consider that every movement has meaning. So even though the child is using hand flapping to regulate himself or herself, they're also using it to communicate something, because they don't know how else to communicate, right? So first of all, if I stop the hand flapping right there and then, I have lost my communication link with the child. I'm stopping them from communicating. So what a dance movement therapy session would look like would be, I would be joining the child, I would be understanding what they're trying to say and slowly modulating, expanding and adapting the movement. Right? Similarly, if a child comes in and is running in my session and is going from one place to other, and I'm trying to catch the child, imagine how the session will go. It's going to be a game of pakdam pakdai. I'm going to be running after the kid and the kid is going to be running and here and there. There isn't going to be much that's going to come out of the session. However, if I try to run with the child and try to establish that one eye contact in the middle, because believe it or not, children, especially with special needs, feel like it's a very different experience for them when somebody doesn't stop them or doesn't say no to them immediately and instead joins them. So if the child is running around, I will probably run with the child for some time and then find a way again to intervene through movement in a way that I bring the energy level down. So rather than taking away the energy, I am giving the child the power. I'm empowering the child with ways to reduce the energy and modulate the energy. All right. There's something called mirroring and attunement that dance movement therapists do, which is basically that through mirroring and joining in a person's movement life, what we establish is kinesthetic empathy. Now, all of us know the meaning of empathy. We've all learned it to put yourself in someone else's shoes, right? Kinesthetic empathy is actually doing exactly that, but understanding through movement. So kinesthetic empathy is empathy through the body, by attuning, carefully mirroring, and paying attention to a person's movement life. All right, talking about benefits. So dance movement therapy has proven to be beneficial for a lot of kids, and there's a lot of research. If you go to Google and type dance movement therapy with autism or ADHD, you'll get a ton of research on it. Some of the things that dance movement therapy helps with: body awareness. Where is my body? Where are my body parts in relationship to each other? Where is my body in space? My body is different from someone else's body. How far will I extend my hand before I touch someone else? At the same time, how close can someone come to me? These are all concepts of body and spatial boundaries that dance movement therapy covers. Self-expression, understanding how I'm feeling, and what is an appropriate way to express that feeling. Communication. Dance movement therapy is an absolutely relational approach. It's the foundation is the therapeutic movement relationship that develops between the therapist and the client or the child that the therapist is seeing. So number one thing before anything else that dance movement therapy works on is communication, attachment, connection. So a lot of our kids who struggle with initiating and maintaining friendships, dance movement therapy may be very, very useful for them. Oh, one another benefit: enhanced mood, right? So I don't think I need to explain that, but just doing any kind of physical movement kind of also helps with that. It's really good for impulse control, for learning impulse control and frustration tolerance for kids who struggle with that, and overall sense of well-being. There are a lot more benefits, but these are the basic ones that I could find that were descriptive of the range of things that dance movement therapy kind of covers. All right, let's move on to how do I know whether my child should attend dance movement therapy? Or how do I know whether my child is okay going to dance class? A lot of people have asked me this. A lot of people are confused about this. So let me begin with basic two questions, all right? The first question is, what is the skill level of the child, right? So is my child able to look at someone else, observe movement? Is my child able to imitate even simple actions like clapping, rolling of hands, and complex actions that involve 2 or 3 steps, as they call it? Is my child able to do all of that? If your child is not there yet, if the eye contact is not there, then I think putting them into a dance class, maybe, depending upon, again, the dance teacher. You may have an amazing dance teacher who works with them really well, but putting them in a large size dance class may not be the best thing for them, because it's like, you know how we want to set up no-fail experiences for children, that they succeed no matter what they do. I don't think that's a no-fail experience for the child. If your child can do all of this, the second question, and the most important question I think, is to ask, why are you suggesting a dance class? Is it because you want them to gain a skill? You want them to learn how to dance and become more confident? Or is it because something deeper that you want them to work on that whole integration piece that we spoke about, the social, emotional, cognitive, and physical integration, and work on their expressive movement or their self-expression, as we call it? So what is really the aim of why do you want them to go dance, right? If the aim is to learn a dance, get confident, build self-esteem, dance class is great. But if it's more than that, if it's deeper than that, something that you as a parent or as a professional feel that requires deeper work than that, or a deeper analysis than that, then it's dance movement therapy. By the way, a lot of kids come to me and they go both for dance class and dance movement therapy sessions. That can happen because the aim of both of those is completely different from one another, and they can exist simultaneously in your child's life to achieve different goals, and they serve different purposes. Alright, so this was what I wanted to tell you about dance movement therapy today, and if there are any questions, then you can quickly type them in, and I promise I will try to answer as many of them as I can. Alright, let me scroll through. Give me a minute. I'm gonna just scroll through and see whether anyone has written any questions till now. Okay. Just a second. by the way, somebody's asked, what is that on your forehead? That's a bindi. It's a very traditional Indian thing. It's a bindi. All right. Okay, I'm going through the comments right now. And thank you, somebody's written informative and well explained. Thank you so much. Thank you for your comments. If you're not able to think of questions, if I haven't covered anything that you want to know about dance therapy, you know where to find me. Please send me any questions that you may have, and I can also answer them later. And I have a question. Do you think children with autism can benefit from dance movement therapy? Definitely. So like I explained, autism is characterized on the spectrum. Children on the spectrum, they have social communication difficulties, they have problems with body awareness, and both of these areas are the core kind of areas that dance movement therapy works on. Like I said, because it is a relational approach, it is very good for any child on the spectrum because it will help them form, maintain, and enhance relationships, as well as be more aware of themselves, their bodies, and the space around them. Then it says, especially one who has repetitive behaviors, can DMT help them to contain themselves? Yes, and yes. So if your child or anyone you know has repetitive behaviors, then a dance movement therapy will get into that behavior through the process of mirroring and attuning to the child, and will try to modify that movement behavior into something which is healthier and more adaptive for the child. And yes, with respect to containing themselves, definitely, once we connect with our bodies, we also focus a lot on teaching kids self-regulation skills through their own body. So that would be helpful as well. All right, I see somebody typing again. Okay, I think this is it for today. And thank you everyone who's joined in. I hope that you were able to gain some information on dance movement therapy and understand what it is. Like I said, if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out and ask me. And yeah, okay. Thank you. See you. Bye bye. Thank you so much for tuning in once again.